I want people to know that if they want to create a product in digital fashion that helps people feel things, that makes people excited, I'm the person to talk to. Hello, my name is Samuel Jordan, and I'm one of the top-selling digital fashion designers on Roblox. My dad used to always tell me, stop wasting all your time playing video games. And I would tell him, I'm working, and he would go, that's not a job, and he now knows that it is. When I started designing fashion items, I wanted to make things I always wanted to wear. I had always wanted earrings on Roblox, and they didn't exist before. I decided I want to make items that help people feel excited and good about themselves. What do I want people to feel? What do they need to feel? Is there anything they can't do right now that they need to? That's where I find inspiration. It's solving problems. I have 11 siblings, and it was kind of hard to find time to develop and be on Roblox, but it was my escape. It was my space where I got to create. When I'm outside in the real world, I definitely think through a creator mindset. It definitely changes the way you view things. Roblox recently launched their layered clothing feature, which really expands the limitless amount of what I can create. I want to make experiences where you make a memory with your friend, and in 5 years you're talking about, remember when we did that together? I want to have that impact. This world is ours for the making. It really resonates because creators independently get to decide what is fun to make, and it really rings true. If I have an idea, I can bring it to life on Roblox. Definitely working with Carly Kloss recently has been a big highlight, and we got to talk about the best way to enter Roblox. I also released a collection of original bags with Burberry. I redesigned their Lola collection for the digital space, working off fantasy themes. Growing up in a super large family, everything is collaborative. You work together, and I think that definitely influenced my personality, where I'm great at working on teams. I've also gotten to work on physical product recently and learning how you take IP from the digital space and bring it into the real world. You're going to continue to see the most creative people shifting to the platform. The next new IP, the next global franchises, they're going to be born on Roblox. You already see a culture being formed there, and that's the future. So just keep making things that you love, that you've tried, that you've played yourself. And if you love it, chances are other people will too.
Please welcome Head of Community Operations, Developer Relations, Lauren Freeman.
Hi, everybody. Who's ready to hear from some amazing developers today? I'm really excited to host this panel. We've got an awesome panel in store for you. I'm Lauren Freeman. I'm the head of community operations and part of the developer relations team here at Roblox. I joined the company having worked about 15 years in gaming, both in console and free-to-play mobile. And I have to say, when I joined Roblox, it was very humbling. I thought I knew developers. I thought I had an amazing Rolodex. And then I came here and I met all of y'all, and I'm just so happy that I've joined this community. You guys are so creative and amazing, guys and gals, I should say. And I'm so happy to be here. This is my 1-year anniversary. I joined Roblox during RDC last year. So hopefully many, many more RDCs in store for me. But you're not here to hear from me. You're here to hear from our amazing panelists. We have a collective, I think, 80 years of experience combined, working in various industries. You're going to hear from a founder of a company who is a quite small company. We have a couple teams that are, scaling up, and they're quite large. So really diverse kind of perspectives that are being shared today. Without further ado, please allow me to introduce our amazing panelists. All right, take a seat. Let's get comfy, cozy, and get this party started, shall we? I'm going to ask all of you to introduce yourselves. I think we're going to start with Andrew.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Andy. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer at Dubbit. We make Roblox experiences and help brands connect with builders.
You want me to start your vid? Here we go.
Hi, everybody. My name is Anne. I've been on the platform for 10 years. I'm the co-founder of Full Flower Studio, and we're the creators behind Mermaid Life, My Droplets, and recently Blade Master, and this is a trailer of our games.
Hello, I'm Sim Furnace. I'm the head of art at Uplift Games. We make Adopt Me.
I really enjoy watching Sim's face when we watch that trailer. He's like a proud parent. You're just like, it's so, I love it, and I want 100 of those corgis. So let's kick off. I'd love to start by, let's just chat through your origin stories, right? Like, what brought you to Roblox in the first place? Why was the company founded? I think I'll start with Anne.
Well,
Maestra.
I came from the platform as a player to begin, and then my favorite game broke on the platform, so I opened up Roblox Studio and tried to recreate it. And that's kind of how I got started as a developer. But then moving forward to after I started doing the accelerator program with Roblox a few times, I wanted to move from being a solo creator to creating higher quality experiences. And I felt that that was the moment that I really needed to start growing a company so that we could scale with the quality that Roblox has been giving us through the tools. And that is how I got started.
How did you find your way to Roblox in the first place? Were you a player? Did you have friends that were on Roblox?
I was really bored, and I loved online open worlds, and I stumbled upon Roblox, and it was a lot of fun because there was a lot of creative elements in it through the different experiences where you could build things, and that's kind of where I got started.
Do you remember the moment that you're like, I want to take a crack at Studio, and you started actually developing?
Yeah, I opened up Studio and I released my own building game so that me and my friends could play and like role play and build little houses and stuff. And it actually got like 100 players in it, and I thought that's really cool. There's potential here, and I just wanted to keep creating experiences.
That's really cool. And Sim, Uplift, kind of a similar origin story that you started with Adopt Me. Can you take us through kind of what happened there?
Yeah, absolutely. So the game launched in 2017 by our founders, and then our numbers kind of rocketed in 2019 with the launch of Pets. And then that's when the decision was made to incorporate the studio and form Uplift, so we could make all of our contractors full-time employees and really grow the brand and expand and build Uplift to what we wanted it to be.
Was there something that served as like a catalyst for the founders to say this is the moment that we want to incorporate? Was it that you were growing, like your contractor pool was really big, or the content demands from the players were high?
I think it's a combination of all of that. The MAU was starting to get to scary numbers, so we needed a team to help service that. And the easiest way to do that was to set up and attract talent with permanent positions.
That makes sense. Cool. And Andrew, Dubbit has a, okay, please clarify, Dubit or Dubbit?
Dubbit.
Dubbit. You heard it here first.
Each to their own.
Okay, Dubbit. So take us through, you have a very interesting founder story.
It's a little bit different. So we started off the platform. We were actually founded in 1999, founded by teenagers, and their goal was to create virtual worlds. And so they created the first Flash-based virtual world. Very quickly we got, how do you form a business around this, and started thinking about that, and we were getting brands approach us who wanted to, much like we see today, integrate into that virtual world and be part of that. This is in the early days of the internet. And we got to know what that was like working with those brands, and then we started building brands' own virtual worlds, again, in the browser, in Flash. And so we've been working with brands for the last 20 years, not just in virtual worlds, but building things like HTML5 games, apps, educational products, VR, AR. And then a lot of what we do as well is research. We find out what young people are doing, what they're playing, from surveying tens of thousands of young people every year. And I'd say at the start of 2020, it was very much Roblox. It was over 50% of 9 to 12-year-olds are playing Roblox. So we started digging into it, started understanding and learning about the platform, put out a report for our existing clients to understand what the opportunity was. And since then, we've probably published around a dozen experiences for brands, and had a lot of fun doing it.
And as I understand it, your founders were quite young when they decided to form the company. Do you know what served as the catalyst there? Why did they say they wanted to start a gaming company in the first place?
Yeah, it was a young enterprise scheme. I forget the name of the equivalent in the States, but it was essentially a goal was to help these young people form a company because they were very interested in business at a young age, and they saw the internet and didn't see anything for them. It was very much, Web 1, it was information, directories, and so they wanted to create something that they could enjoy. And they actually got into the Guinness Book of Records being the youngest company directors, so it's quite an interesting caveat to that. So, yeah.
Very cool. I know I'm going a little off script here, so forgive me. I told you I wouldn't do that, but I'm tempted because I don't have a question related to the name of your company, and I know there's developers in the audience who might be thinking about finding a company and going through the practice of what should I name our studio? Would any of you care to share how you chose the name for your studio, or your founders chose the name?
No, ours isn't a great name, so I think we're quite, it's a bit of an odd name, Dubbit. It sounds like a dubbing music company. I couldn't tell you the origin story. I'm sure there's an interesting one, but we've stuck with it, and it's quite unique. And,
it works.
It does the job. So there's not a crazy story behind it, unfortunately.
How about Full Flower, Anne? Was there significance there? Or?
Yeah, my husband made a studio called Full Fire Studio, and I was like, flowers, and so I decided to call it Full Flower Studio, and that's what happened.
I love it. Okay, Sim, do you know Uplift Games, what the story is there?
Yeah, it's not a complicated thing, really. It's kind of, we wanted to uplift people, and the community, and everybody were part of Adopt Me and Uplift Game. So it's
amazing. Well, thank you for sharing, and thank you for entertaining an off-script question. Okay, let's talk about your first year. When the company was first founded, what were the goals that you had? Did those change over the course of the first year? And what was your strategy when you said, I'm going to form the company? And did that shift over the first year? Who wants to start?
I'll kick us off, but it's probably better to look at sort of Roblox, because going back to the late 90s, it was young people trying to build something on the internet. But first year of Roblox was very much a learning experience and trying to understand the platform. We didn't just assume that because we knew game development that we could just come on and start building stuff. So we wanted to learn, did a lot of investigation, and then the goal was to simply build, work with a brand to build a game. And so we did that. And then we've not set any specific targets around, we want to build X games by Y. It's just been very much how do we apply what we've been doing for the last 20 years to this new platform, and how do we take what we've learned from working with brands and not only apply that to Roblox, but educate and have this system where we've got a two-way street of information where we're bringing people in that have grown up on the platform, and they're sharing all this amazing knowledge with our traditional game developers. But then they're also learning, processes and game development principles that we've been putting in place for several years for servicing clients. So for us, it's just been a case of trying to figure out what that looked like in the first year, apply it to a game. And then we started looking at things like, what can we do next? Can we do an event? Can we do something else? And just gradually started finding all these different, use cases that we wanted to learn from and produce.
Awesome. So just kind of stemming off what you're talking about, it sounds like, Debit, from the outset when you decided you wanted to approach Roblox as a strategy, you knew that you had to hire from the community. You also had, off-platform developers and those who had breadth of experience working with clients. But what were the skills or capabilities that our community developers came with that were that you felt like were filling gaps on,
I always
staff?
sort of describe it as a sort of an intangible knowledge or just understanding of the platform and what works and what's fun, and understanding what's lame and what's not. And that is really difficult to quantify into something, tangible, but understanding the platform and having, maybe we've got an idea for a game, but maybe they've seen that game several years ago and it didn't go down very well, or there was this problem with it. So a lot of it, I think, to do with the design side, the actual design side of what works on Roblox and what doesn't, and understanding that, going from building games with, lots of onboarding or educational products and understanding that, that actually is to your detriment on Roblox in some instances. If you're trying to build something that players can jump in and understand straight away and not leave.
So it's really about understanding the players. And the vast majority, I'm going to say probably all of our developers are players as well. Many of them have came, as Anne, said, as players, right, yourself, where you really understand the game and you love the game, and then you decided to take a crack at it. Anne, how about yourself?
Well, a lot of the people that kind of run things at Full Flower, we started it with a lot of passion projects that were taking multiple years to release. And those were really fun because we were able to release them and then iterate on them over those 2 years and learn from them. But the way that we're kind of pivoting now is definitely trying to create a bunch of smaller experiences and figuring out what's going to stick on Roblox, because again, you need to figure out what the players are going to engage with. So that's kind of, I guess, our pivot for that.
So continuing to develop your IP that you started off with, but that now considering to develop new.
Yeah.
How do you manage that? In terms of your portfolio, how do you know when it's time to move on to another title and
We're still figuring that out, I'm going to be honest.
That's fair. That's fair. I'm sure that's a question that a lot of developers have. How much do I invest in the title that kind of got us to where we are versus Awesome. Sim?
Yeah, so it's interesting for Uplift because we'd got a very successful title, and we were having to almost catch up to how successful it was. And my background is in traditional game dev, so we kind of wanted to get that structure in place for that, with heads of department and a reporting structure, and make sure that everybody what worked for us has got a manager and somebody who they can report to and grow from. So that was a major part for Uplift.
That's a good segue, because the next thing that I wanted to talk about was kind of the different challenges that come from when you start a company and it's quite small, and then you're scaling the company, and there's in the case of my stuff, right, you're a game designer, and so that's your passion, and you're continuing to be hands-on. But Sim, you mentioned at Uplift, so at the end of year one, you reach a point where you have to kind of specialize. And I know this is something that you have a really unique perspective on. Do you mind sharing a little bit about how, on the art side of the business, you've kind of maintained different talent tracks so that you have management and hands-on?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a really important stage of an artist development. So we have artists what get better and better and increase in their career and increase the skill set. And it was important to have a roadmap so the artists know how to progress. Mm-hmm. And then there's a decision point at senior level where the artist can decide whether they want to go to a principal track, which is basically just getting better and better at your craft. There's no people management involved at that stage. We strip all of that kind of out of that track, and it's just an art guru really, what can pass their skills around the team and do departmental talks and new ways of working and
so
really
they have mentorship like built into the role as a lead, but they're not necessarily management.
Exactly, that's right. So the mentorship is a huge part of the principal track, and then we have the other track, which is the lead art path, which kind of has all the fun stuff like scheduling and one-to-ones and those kind of things in there, but it's still a hands-on role. Obviously, there's a certain amount of management there, and I think it really gives our artists flexibility to decide what they want to do and what their natural ability is. So I think I hope the team really love that option.
Do you is it a binary decision at some point that you have to choose to remain hands-on or be more management, or can you have your cake and eat it too? Can you be in management track but also somehow find a way to be hands-on? Because I imagine some of your leads depend on you to be an expert in the field as well. How do you do that? How do you balance it?
I don't think anything's sort of set in stone once they move on that track. A lead artist may discover that's not, maybe they don't enjoy it as much as what they would being an artist with fully hands-on most of the time, because a lot of artists don't. But I think rather than ploughing on down that course, there's always the option to step sideways and move into the other aspect, and vice versa from the principal. They can move over to the lead track as well. It's finding what people are good at and then drilling into that.
It's really up to the individual and casting for the individual. I think that's very valuable feedback for the folks in the audience who are kind of trying to figure that out. Maista, how about you? So you're still hands-on with game design, as I understand it. What is your strategy for building your team? Do you find talent that kind of complements skill sets outside of game design? Do you have game designers on staff?
A lot of the people that we work with also kind of come from the indie game dev side of things. So they're also game designers and artists at the same time, or they're a game designer and a programmer at the same time. So I'll be able to get feedback from them on the direction we should take a new project. We have a lot of multi-talented people on our teams. I love it, multitasking and kind of more generalist, or able to pick up different skill sets. So you might have a project manager who's also an artist. I think that's relatively common with a smaller team, right? And valuable for folks in the audience who are thinking do you want to scale, your company, or keep it small and mighty? There's a path, there's an option for both. If you are really, really passionate about your craft and you want to form a company, it doesn't mean that you have to forego that. You can form a company and you can continue to, pursue your craft, but then you have to hire people around you that complement that and augment it. Andrew, what's your thought on the scaling teams? And
I think a key part is documenting procedures in advance. So if you're at, say, less than 10 people, every time you increase the size, your communication lines grow exponentially because you're adding more people in, and you can kind of get away with it with less than 10, I think, for having informal communication. But it may not seem really important, but it is to document the procedures, all the different things, have a company wiki, have a Confluence page with all the different procedures on before you actually scale, because then you get to the point where it's working, and then it breaks. And we found that we're at about 160 now, and I think that once you get past 10, it's important to have those procedures in place, but once you hit 50, things break again. And so What we find works for us is when we got to this scale is actually splitting off into squads of about 20 people and managing it that way. So you've got all the cross company coding standards, but they're split off into teams, so it's more manageable.
That's interesting. Just so I understand, you kind of find the threshold to be around 50, and once you hit 50, the ideal is to start dividing the team into smaller pods.
Yeah. I think before 10 it's fine, and then you get past 10, get the procedure in, and then you hit 50 again, and suddenly you think, right, okay, this is when you get more problems. So we found that.
Is that unique to Roblox development, or are you finding that across other?
I think it's probably across the board, but it's also probably more applicable to us, given we're working on multiple projects at the same time. So we kind of have to do that. It's not just purely for communication and actually growing efficiently. It's just more that it makes sense to split out teams in certain disciplines. So you might have a squad that's got more experience with doing events versus a squad that's got experience working on a game that has live ops and has to run. So it depends on the type of work you're doing, I think. But for a company like Uplift, I don't know whether it's the same thing applies, because there's one game there. Obviously, there's lots of content and updates, but when you've got multiple projects, it made sense to us to split those out.
Makes sense. All right, let's talk a little bit about, we've covered this to some extent, but balancing the day-to-day of running a business, and then, by maintaining your enthusiasm for game development. Maesta, I'm looking at you, I'm going to start with you. How do you do this? How do you balance, you're running a business, you're hiring, you've got bills to pay, but you also, remain enthusiastic about making great experiences?
I think it's really important, at least for a small company. We started it because we wanted to make sure that the experience we were creating are meaningful to us. And so we try to only take on work that is meaningful to our company. And so that's the thing that we're passionate about. And it's not necessarily always about building what's going to be the most successful. We're sometimes experimenting, seeing if we can get things that we're passionate about to be successful. And then, yeah,
that's good advice. Sim, how about yourself? I know we talked about it a little bit. Do you stay hands-on with art? What's your process?
Absolutely. We love working with third-party IP. We have a 12-month roadmap where we can slot these releases in. We aim to do 3 to 4 throughout the year, and I think it's the artists absolutely love working on those kind of IPs. We're bringing in big name brands and matching them to the Adopt Me art style, and it's a really interesting process what we've got in place with working with the external IP and the feedback process and the constant communication and the setting the scope is the most important aspect we've found, and making sure both parties are on board with that and there's no surprises. But yeah, I think for us, certainly as an artist, my background, I love working with that IP. The Sing 2 stuff was amazing.
Do you have certain artists that gravitate to working with IP and others that don't really?
It's because we have quite a flat structure as well, where we task out the work. It's always a struggle to who wants to build the main character and who's going to build the environment and who wants to. So it turns into a little bit of a back and forward with who's going to be doing
straws.
Yeah, so it's literally because everybody wants to work on the enormous IP, So it's it can be a little bit of a push and pull kind of thing there.
Andrew, anything to add on this topic?
I just think what Sim was saying at the end there about brands, working with brands, and having people getting excited about those brands. I think that's really important. You want to be bringing brands in that your developers want to work on, and managing different priorities amongst those brands is always really important because you're often dealing with different stakeholders. So I would just say that if you are looking to work with brands through integrations or however way you want to start, it's just really important to realize you're managing lots of different priorities with the stakeholders, and at the end of the day, they've got their brand and they're not going to compromise that in the game. So you have to factor that into the design. But obviously, it's different depending on the type of experience you're building. But that's out there.
There's some really good knowledge to impart just broadly when we're thinking about the concept of brands aside, right? Brands are one type of partner that might want to partner with a dev studio, but like client work, just generally speaking, right? Like whether it's a brand or it's another developer who wants to partner with you, right? It sounds like some of the lessons I'm hearing is like from Anne, you want to make sure that like it's aligned with your values as a company, that it's something you're interested in. You're not just taking on client work for the sake of it. It's actually like going to help move the needle in some way with your strategy. Sam, you mentioned like you've got a scope. Make sure the scope is aligned on up front so that you're not disappointed, the client's not disappointed, and then making sure that you have talent that are excited about working with that client, and you're not just tacking it on to pay your bills. So I think you've all kind of. I just wanted to like make that point, right? It's not only brands that might come to you as a developer. You may have opportunities to work with one another or with IP holders. It may manifest in different ways. And there's also always a viable option of just continuing to develop your own original IP, right? But for those of you who are thinking about client work, it takes a different way of thinking about like project management and making sure that you're set up for success. You know what, we only have 3 minutes to go, so let's skip this last piece here and we're going to jump to questions. I want to take a minute to thank our virtual audience. And I think we probably have about 3 minutes to take any questions from the audience here.